Commotion. I forgot to start the recording for the meeting, but now we are recording. Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda. Well, first go back to announcements. Henry, would you take a moment, please, to introduce yourself to the council? And I will just say before you do that Henry's family has been a longtime resident of Gualala. He and his wife moved here a couple of years ago. They have one of Gualala's youngest citizens, Martin, who was born here, born Gualala native. And they live around the corner from me. They're fine people, and I'm glad to have Henry here. But Henry, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to join GMAC.
Well, thanks for that introduction. So I have been living here since October of 2019. So I'm a fairly new resident, especially compared to some of the other people I know who are on this council and attendees from what I've seen before. But we've been delighted with how welcoming Gualala is. Obviously, it's been a weird time to live in a new place. I mean, we came before things got strange, but then they got strange pretty quick. We have, as Tom mentioned, our son Martin, who's not technically born in Gualala because it's not that easy to be born in Gualala. It's not something you necessarily plan. I don't know if RCMS is quite prepared for that, but he's definitely a Gualalan aside from the first couple of weeks of his existence. This has just been a great place for him. And we're living, it's my wife's parents' house that we have been living in and has treated us very well. I'm somebody who has for a long time taken an interest in politics and policy and governance, but mostly on national and state level. And to my shame, I have not really gotten involved in local governance in the past. And Tom suggested after we chatted a few times that I might be interested, and turns out that I was. And so I'm really glad to be doing this. It's sort of, you know, I feel as though it's a responsibility I've shirked in the past, and I would like to stop doing that. So I'm very glad to be here.
Well, welcome. You're especially welcome tonight, but always too. And it's really nice to have somebody maybe a little bit younger than the average age of this council. Someone who has a young son who's looking to the forward and cares about what Gualala will be 20 or 30 years from now, which I do, but in a different way. So good to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome you, Henry. I think it's great that you've taken the initiative to become a member of our council, and we certainly need additional members. I think, well, if we get one more, we'll be at full complement, Tom?
Yes, Henry actually applied to be our alternate. And because we're not a full council, here he sits as a full council member tonight anyway. So things happen, Henry. What can I say?
Yeah,
welcome.
I noticed that. Thank you very much.
I think there are 7 regular council members and 1 alternate. The 7 usually vote, and if there is 1 missing, then the alternate will vote. But I think it's 7 plus 1.
That's correct. And if a full-time member leaves the council, the county code says that the alternate would take that full-time seat and serve the rest of that term. I don't know if that's voluntary or not. It's kind of in the actual legal language. Okay, unless anybody else has another word here, then we'll move on.
I wanted to welcome Henry and let you know that you joined the council for the same reason I did. After 30 years of letting my political science degree languish, I decided I'd get involved in local politics.
Well, thank you very much for the welcome.
And I should also mention, Henry is a software engineer.
Oh, sorry, I should have mentioned that. But.
So Don has some technical background. I've worked with technical companies. So we're getting a little bit more into the 21st century for a while here. Okay, let's move on. The next item would be the approval of minutes from February 3rd. Do we hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Hearing a motion in a second, we'll go for a vote. Melissa, your vote.
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Henry,
Obviously, it's a little strange since I was not at the previous.
You
Actually, no,
can-
but I did watch it. So yes, approved. Aye.
and I will approve. Aye. So that's 4-0 with 2 absences. Next item is a couple of matters of correspondence, and Mary reminded me as the meeting started that we have Form 700 due. Council members, if you haven't gotten this yet, Mary will send it to you. Henry, you'll get one of these too. It's a very easy form to fill out, even though it looks very confusing. You only have to fill out a few lines because we're below a certain threshold. It's our conflict of interest rule.
I forward it to everybody, so I do have a copy. Thank you.
Except Henry. So
Yeah. Do you need anything from me for how to send that my way?
And an email address?
Okay. Do you want that now, or should we do that afterwards?
You
We
can
can
do
do
that.
that afterwards.
Yeah, I'll send it along, Mary.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, and as a matter
But I
of
would-
fact, we're all going to need Henry's email address.
Yes.
So Mary, if you could, get his address and then send it out to all of us so we can put that in our contact list.
I can get
I'll
all of the
send-
information.
I'll send it to all of you tonight, but Mary, you know what, our contact list is way out of date. And maybe you
Yes.
could take that on as a project. We have all kinds of different department heads and things going on now, so that'd be a good thing to update.
Yes.
Okay, that's one item. And then we have, a meeting was held today, this afternoon. I don't think we need to really talk about this on Sonoma County's Planning Commission hearing to update their local coastal plan. Would have been interesting to monitor that, but it's over. And then CAL FIRE is continuing to mail its THP application submissions. I hope they mail them a little earlier so we can get our comments in by their deadlines, which are usually passed by the time we get them. That covers correspondence. And the approval of the agenda for March 3rd. The agenda is before you. Are we all good with that? Do we hear a motion to approve?
I move to
Move to approve.
agenda.
Don Hess moves to approve.
I'll
Here's a
second.
Henry Mayer moves to seconds. And the vote goes to Don.
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye. Didn't we already approve the minutes?
this is the agenda.
Oh, aye.
And I will move to, I will vote to approve. Now we come to the section of the item for public input on non-agenda items. We do have a member of the public here, Dave Spack. Welcome back, Dave. And if there's anybody else who'd like to say something as a private citizen, you're certainly welcome to here.
I have one question as a private citizen.
Yes, Melissa.
We just had a census. Do you know when the new number of this will go up on the sign that shows the name of the city? What do we
I
call
do
that
not
thing?
know. I do not know when that will go up. That is actually something Caltrans will facilitate when the time comes, but I haven't even heard the number. If anybody knows that number, I'd be curious to know it. Okay. Well, we'll dig into that one.
Okay, I was driving into town the other day and I looked at it and I said, wait a minute, it's got to be updated someday. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, well, we got Henry and Martin and Henry's wife, so it probably went up by 3. There you go.
Tom, this is Dave Sprock. Thanks for the kind welcome. I don't have any comments, but I do appreciate you guys being here and doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Dave was, I don't know if this is common knowledge, Dave. Dave was actually appointed by the board to be a GMAC member, but had taken on some other responsibilities and could not serve. so he had to back out, but he's been at every meeting since, and I certainly appreciate his assistance. He's kind of our Brian Epstein. It's an obscure joke for you.
You're a nice guy.
Any other public comments? If not, we'll move on. All right, we are up to number 5, the report from our law and code enforcement folks. Who will take the lead on this? JD, you want to take it? You're the senior officer here.
So I am having a little bit of connectivity issues, I think, because I'm catching every other word from what I'm hearing. So hopefully you can hear me okay.
You're 10 by 10.
Awesome, awesome. So for the sheriff's office, I'll start off with our monthly calls for service in the Gualala area. We've had about 34 calls for service in the last 30 days. And out of those 34 calls for service, we've taken 11 investigative reports and we've made 3 arrests. The call types, there's really nothing serious other than what I'll go into in a second, but we've had 2 trespass calls, a couple vandalism calls, a couple disturbance calls, mentally ill, and a brandishing of a weapon, and 2 unlawful camping calls. So that's kind of the majority out of the bunch. Out of the arrest, we made an arrest for an arson. I'm sure you guys were probably familiar with the vehicle that was burning on South Highway 1. An arrest was made out of that and submitted to the district attorney's office. And we had 5 calls for people reporting suspicious circumstances. Out of one of those calls, when we responded, we were able to make an arrest for a burglary. So I just want to throw that as a demonstration of the community calling in on suspicious stuff, and how the outcome of that one was definitely beneficial for the community, as well as for us to be able to get there and investigate that. So, and that would have been a residential burglary. Aside from that, it's I think a pretty good month for Gualala in general. Moving on, I would steal the sheriff's thunder because I know he would have liked to discuss this, and again, he apologizes for not being able to attend tonight. But we do have a new deputy on the coast. He's a lateral from another agency, and he's doing pretty good. He is showing a very strong interest of being a South Coast resident deputy, which is a good thing. So hopefully eventually in the near future at some point, we'll be able to fulfill that position with him. But that's going to be based on obviously performance and his ability to perform the duties of a resident deputy sheriff. So again, he's a new guy. He does have some experience, but you know, we kind of gave a timeline of about 6 months during the Point Arena City Council meeting for if and when that would be a practical time to assign him that responsibility. Also, what impacts that is our staffing levels at the same time too. But just so that's out there, you guys are aware, we have a potential for a good resident South Coast deputy. Other than that, I think that's all I have for you. Does anybody have anything for me?
That's really good news about the South Coast deputy, JD, and we'll look forward to meeting this person and hopefully making him feel at home. And I hope he feels at home in our community. It's something we really need here. So, and it's glad all your team is on the job down here. We did, I think everybody's heard about that arson. Pretty bizarre case. I've heard about some other rather disturbing charges flying around in other cases, but comparatively speaking, we have a pretty peaceful setting. Anybody else have a comment or question for JD?
I just want to thank him and his officers for the time that they give and the protection and the duty that they serve. Thank you very, very much. We on the South Coast really appreciate it. And I, as a citizen, would like to extend that.
Well, thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. And I'll send that out to all the guys so they're aware.
Thank you.
And I see we have a couple of other people from the county here tonight. Travis and Brent are here. Do either of you have something to add for our meeting tonight?
I don't have anything specific. I'm just here to see what Gualala is talking about and kind of issues you guys are dealing with.
Great. Travis was telling us before the meeting that he's kind of resiliency and disaster recovery person. So the people who have fires in their community, they have a lot of resiliency and recovery activity going on. We haven't had as much. Our disaster is the drought, and it's sort of slowly eating at our community, but it's not something that Travis is probably actively doing anything on right now, or not that we're doing that much for ourselves.
This is Brent. I do have a few things to share with you guys if you have a moment.
Absolutely. Go for it, Brent.
All right. So speaking of drought, just so everybody's aware, we do have a county staff that are meeting once a month right now with the state partners to kind of address, what programs are available, what the status are, and kind of monitoring where weather and such has been kind of pushing the state a little bit for, better services and kind of leaning forward into this year, what we're anticipating. We will go back in the next couple months into where we had the twice every month where we were meeting with coastal partners and then turning around and having inland partner meetings. So essentially what we do is we meet with the state, and then we turn around and we meet with, water districts and such, and key leaders within different communities, and try to address, because the inland has so much of a different profile than say the coastal communities. So we also have that newsletter and such. And so right now it's kind of been dialed back because the information isn't, there isn't a change as much. Water reservoirs started to pick back up, and the concern drift away a little bit, but obviously it'll start picking up. And as policy changes, we'll be putting those policies change. We'll be putting that information in the newsletter. So please keep an eye out on that. And just know that we're working in the background to start kind of bracing for what we can do for this year. So that's drought. March is generally tsunami timeframe planning and exercises that we do at the state. March the week of March 21st that week is really kind of like the bulk of the tsunami efforts. March 22nd, we'll be doing a live code exercise that we do annually with state and federal partners. So we will be triggering the alarms or the sirens on the coast on the Wednesday the 22nd. National weather, they will trigger the NOAA weather radio. So a test message will go out, and I believe that's at between 11 and 12 on the 22nd. We will make sure we put out notifications through Nixle and such in the morning, kind of reminding the public, and then leading into it, we'll have some social media reminders and some advertisements of it and things that people should do to get ready for tsunami. What I would share with the group is that even though we're talking tsunami and such, these procedures and things that happen in the background are also very how we do alerting is very much the same for, say, fires and evacuations and things. So even though the scenario is one thing, just know that this is a good time to do these things, because it helps us do live messaging to the public as we move into fire season, right? Just gives us another opportunity to touch the systems, do training with staff, things like that. So that happens on the 22nd. And other than that, I'll probably be reaching out to city council and such, and just we've been working on updating some tsunami procedures and policies and some planning efforts. I'd like to kind of work through a couple of things internally and do some exercises either right before or right after. So we'll work with some city staff, reference those items. So, and if you guys have any questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out. I did follow up with NOAA weather. I think I sent that to the group following last meeting, and just kind of giving you guys a picture of what actual weather conditions were, reference fire conditions and such. So if there's anything else we can do for you, just let me know. And I thank you for your time.
Brent, I have a question. you don't mind, regarding, you mentioned tsunami preparations or procedures. Realistically, what is the risk on the south coast here for tsunamis, since we are significantly far away from the Cascadian subduction zone, which is much further north, which other coastal towns like Arcata are exposed to. So realistically, what is our risk here?
Yeah, obviously it's the harbors and such, the low-lying areas where you have, gentle elevation changes. Ultimately, you're on our coast is very cliff, so we are fortunate in that aspect. But you have issues with near or an earthquake, like what you mentioned, a slip strike type issue, where you have an earthquake off the coast. And then you have issues that are long range, distance origination sources. So like what happened with the volcano or an earthquake across the ocean, where the wave kind of comes across. And those events, so there are two different types of events. Essentially, the thing with distance and range gives us an opportunity to get some type of analysis as waves travel through buoys and such out in the ocean. And then we can also take an assessment of, how bad is it based on, reports from, say, Hawaii and other areas. So as that wave travels, we can get a sense of like what its actual impact will be. Now, when you talk about an earthquake right off the coast, that is no notice event. And basically, you're probably not going to get the sirens. You're probably not going to, that's where we have to teach the public that if something like that happens, the earthquake is the notice, essentially. And especially if you start seeing something happen where like the ocean recedes and, exposes, goes into what you would think would be a low tide, that's a big indicator that it's going to come back in. And so these are the things we like to discuss or to teach the public. We've identified essentially 10 locations along the coast that, Noyo Harbor and things like that, where we do have some population or potential for run up of water. And I can definitely share that. I think maybe that's something that we were going to try to do with the city council. And as we kind of roll out a plan or any updates, we just do a quick presentation and get on the agenda to kind of share, what the risks are potentially in certain areas, and then also what to look for, how to prepare, and what to do in response to some type of tsunami. The biggest thing I like to address or kind of like mention is, we have such a tourist impact right on the coast. And so really I hate to say it, a lot of times it's not the residents we're so much worried about. It's the people who don't know. And then those are the people we end up saving, right? Or the people who go out there to look and watch because they hear a tsunami's coming. And like, if you look at the response efforts for the state this last year or this last couple of months when we had a tsunami, most of the people had to be rescued were all people who went out there to watch it and put themselves in that situation. So, those are all the things we like to talk about and just kind of, look at in an annual basis and kind of remind people.
Mary, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I am not on your warning list. How do I list my telephone number so that I may be hit with a warning or you, I know you ring people or you send a message, and I'm not on that, and I would like to get on it.
Yeah, so I always have people register via Nixle, and then I like them to register also with the Everbridge system. And I always ask that they do it on actually logging into both systems and doing it online. That way they can manage the accounts. And the abridged version, people have talked about how they just text the number in. Well, that's not a full registration. The easiest thing you can do is just go to that mendoready.org website that we created last year prior to fire season. On there, if you go to plan and prepared, there's a section on being informed. And there's the link for both of them, Nixle and the Everbridge site, to register your information. So just go to mendoready.org and
.org.
yeah, and then you'll see links to how to get alerts. The information's also on the county webpage. We created some videos, and this is something I should have shared also. I built out a kind of a preparedness campaign throughout the year. Once a week, probably Thursday, Fridays, we'll post something. It may not be obvious, but it's just going to be reminders, different times of the year, you know, whether it's fire season, flood, drought, whatever it might be, but just preparedness type content or things to know. And so anybody who wants to share that information off the sheriff's websites, whether it's Facebook and Twitter, you know, that always helps us get more information out to partners. And there you go. You found it. Plan and prepare. And when you go down, you'll find the information.
Yeah, Brent, where on this website though do you sign up for the alerts?
Go down. It looks like so see how it says be informed?
Okay.
And there was a direct link on the first page, but this is,
Sign up.
I like when people actually look at this stuff, because then they can see there's actually a plan, like family plan, that you can print in here too, but be informed.
Good. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, click on that. Yeah, there you go. And now when you go down there, that's different types of alerts that we use. And then you'll see the register today for Mendo, and then there's another one a little farther down for Nixle. And so these are places that you can find out information about these systems, and then also how to register for them. And again, for the tsunami exercise, you'll hear the NOAA weather radio test. You'll hear the sirens. We'll do the sirens twice because we are going to test activating them from dispatch, and then also letting National Weather Service partners set them off also. So.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry. One more question. Are you familiar with watch duty?
I've heard of it, and I've seen so many different, and they get bought out. Which are you referring to? Like, what is it? Premise?
It's an app. I think it's mostly fire centric. I think. Yeah, I think it's maybe exclusively fire.
Yeah, you're correct. It is solely for fire based.
Okay. Anyway, it's something I use. I also have Nixle and Everbridge, but I was wondering if you find
that's the one for recalling. That's the one for recalling staff for the most part, I believe, or no? No worries.
No, it is notifications about wildfires in a handful of counties, like Mendo, Sonoma, Lake, maybe one or two others. But it's another alert channel that I've used, and I was curious as to whether the county had any opinions on it. So sounds like maybe
no.
not so
My
much.
understanding is the county will be picking up Pulse Point and a few others. But no, we pretty much run. We have actually, a very robust alerting system. Actually, more than say Napa and some other counties that you would think. And then also, I'm just outside of this, I'm chairing the state's alert and warning subcommittee type stuff to kind of look at what the state's going to do, because we will be onboarding. And some point, the state for 2 years now has been, since the 17 fires, has really been looking at how do we do a statewide alerting system. So we're actually making sure we're actually tip of the spear of trying to push that program forward.
Great, thank you.
And I don't know if it answers your question better, Henry, but a number of us, especially our command staff, we do have that application. But it's not an application that we can use to notify, and send out notifications or anything like that. It's just an informational application.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. Thank you both.
Okay, that was a good question, Mary. I'm glad you asked that one, because even I forgot how I got into Nixle, and it is nice to be on it. Let's move on to another item, and that would be permit applications. We have none tonight. Sorry, we can't talk 2 hours about somebody building a house. JD, are you waving goodbye? I think you was. Bye.
I do want to let you know that there were 3 applications that were supposed to be referenced to GMAC, and they have not arrived.
All right. You
yeah.
saw them online?
No, they were Yagi or JAGGI, and then the Mendocino County Department of Transportation, and then the Forsman, and it's a CDPR, so it's a renewal. And GMAC is on all 3 of them, and we have received none of them from the county.
If we haven't received them, we don't have to worry about them. That's
pretty true. I think Robert said last month he was going to check into the procedures with the planning department. I don't know if he's had a chance to do that. I know he's had an exceptionally busy month, as have I. So, you know, I don't think he managed to do that yet, but let's remind him about that when he gets back in gear. After he does your invoice, Mary.
Yes.
And then we'll remind him that he's going to check with planning on that. That'd be a good thing.
But I just wanted you to know I have not heard anything about any type of project this month, including those 3 that had been referenced.
Yeah, Robert made some reference to him in an email saying that he didn't think we needed to put them on the agenda. He had a couple of items, but and I deferred to his judgment on that. So let's just wait and see how it goes next month. I don't think I'm eager to get more on here tonight than we have. Council matters. Any old business that we need to talk about? I don't think so. Thanks, Brent. And thank you, Travis. Travis is gone. Oh, Travis is here. Okay, thank you. GCAP committee, I think you all got a copy of the letter, which was also sent out to media. I talked to the ICO, and they and I agreed that there was really not much in there that they hadn't already reported, but there was a lot more detail. That letter is published on our website, along with an affidavit of some of the exhibits of why we came to those conclusions. And I encourage everybody in the community, whether they're solidly behind everything we're doing or not, to read that and to try to understand. And we want to have an ongoing dialogue with members of the community to make sure everybody's pretty unified on for it. We have not heard back from Caltrans. I didn't really expect to. We gave them our input, and now it's up to them to kind of work it internally and see what they come up with. We haven't had any formal announcement from them about what they've decided. But Robert and I will be following up as soon as we can with various parties involved, including Robert Bowen and Dave Bauer, who were at our last meeting and wanted to meet with us. I'm afraid Robert and I just ran out of time this month and didn't have time to get together with them, but I do have that on my list of to-dos. We'll also be following up with MCOG, the planning department, and the California Conservation Corps this month. There's a lot to talk about, and I think once you come up with the core concept of what we're going to do, only took us 27 years, that's when a lot of the detail work begins, and we're eager to get at that. I think that's it for the GCAP committee, unless anybody had any questions about the letter we sent or anything we said in it, since it was sent on behalf of the council and it was written after our meeting. So if you have any thoughts about that, I'd be happy to hear them.
Could I put in a vote to vote for that letter?
Yes, you can. Our bylaws allow council members to change their votes either immediately after a vote is taken or at the very next meeting if they'd like to change their vote.
Okay.
Melissa was listed as an absent at our last meeting. Would you like to change that, Melissa?
Yes, I want to change it to yes. Aye.
Mary, you hear that and understand?
Yes, I will make sure that it goes into the minutes as a change of the vote. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
remembering that.
How could I forget?
If there's nothing else about this, by the way, I forwarded that letter and background materials to Henry so he could kind of get up to speed on some of this. It's only 27 years of detailed history, Henry, but you got the kind of Cliff Books version of it.
Yeah, which was extremely helpful. Thank you for sending all that. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm that I think there are still large aspects of the history that I'm probably missing, but I feel much more cognizant of sort of what's going on with all of that, certainly, than I did before reading your email and associated documents and video. So thank you.
You know, it's interesting. Probably the comments I get from the community are very good natured, and they all like, well, why don't we do this? And it's like we haven't done anything for 20 years. So it's I think a lot of people that think that they can just change something now. And you know, it is still in flux a little bit, but now we're down to kind of the details of things. But I think it might be good to have some kind of forum once Caltrans locks in a design, to have a forum to explain to the community what's going on and set some expectations and give kind of a contextual thing. I always try to do that during my presentations, but I don't know how well that works.
If
I've
you
been
would
speaking
like
as-
to have any of the back minutes for the last 2 or 3 months, you may either go on to the GMAC website or request from me any minutes that you would like, and I would be glad to send them to you via email.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
Mary is sort of amazing, Henry. She's sort of the glue that holds GMAC together.
I can already tell.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Cool.
I'll stop
and-
blushing now.
All right. Housing and Economic Development Committee, I really don't have a lot to report, except this continues to come up as a hot topic on Facebook whenever somebody mentions, why don't we have enough housing? There are 50 or 60 comments, to which I usually add a couple. And I also think a public forum on the housing/water issues may be something we want to work on in the future, but not tonight. Don Hess, the electric vehicle charging station, any change in the last month?
Well, in fact, there has been a little bit of movement. Whether it results in anything in the short term, I can't guarantee. But I have been in contact with a local business owner who appears willing to cede some of his parking spaces for EV charging. I think I mentioned last meeting that there was a new grant program sponsored by the California Energy Commission, specifically for rural EV charging support. However, there are some parameters that make it a bit difficult, especially for our small community, and that is the minimum grant amount is $500,000. So there's no way in the world that we can spend $500,000 for EV charging. It would be absurd. So this would have to be a part of a larger project with other sites. So,
Well, there you go.
along
That's how
with
you spend $500,000.
exactly right. I've been working a little bit with Janet Orth of MCOG in terms of finding or drafting, a larger player, basically a provider, like ChargePoint or EV Range is another one. And so I'm not sure that it's going to work out in time, because March 11th is the deadline for applying for this grant. But there might still be a little bit of hope. in any event, the major positive thing I think that we can take from this so far is that a local business owner is interested.
Okay.
And if this particular grant program from the California Energy Commission doesn't work out for whatever reason, then we'll have to look at other opportunities that would come, in the future, hopefully near future. One of those being, of course, the federal program run by the United States Department of Transportation to install, I think, well, the numbers aren't there yet, but the money is, that is, I think it's $7.5 billion that has been allocated now specifically for EV charging stations across the nation. My understanding is the first $5 billion is going to be focused on major throughways, freeways, stops, kind of thing. And then the second tranche of like $2.5 billion would be for underserved areas, hopefully rural areas like ours, that are a little bit off the beaten path, but still in need of public support, really, in order to get any kind of EV charging up and running.
Mhm.
So that's where we're at. I mean, it's little steps, hopefully, from this initial attempt with the California Energy Commission grant program, will at least establish some base to move forward, to get ready for whatever comes next. This program we didn't learn about until kind of late in the game. So we're up against the wall in terms of a deadline. So we'll just see what happens, but we're going to continue to work to make this happen somehow in Gualala, regardless of what happens with the California Energy Commission grant program.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that there's some talk about this going on and that the money actually is moving. That's good. And Travis just messaged on text that there's some action going on through the March 11 grant. Supervisor Dan Jurdy is a big proponent of this. I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to Dan about this, Don, but
I haven't talked to Dan. There was some word I got that, in fact, the county is applying for this money for a project that they're going to do. My understanding is it mostly involves the fleet, perhaps a new fleet with electric vehicles, and they need charging stations for the county. I have no idea whether they're even considering Gualala as a potential location. I'm trying to get some information about that right now.
I have some information on it.
Okay, great. Yeah, feel free to let us know.
Yeah, so they are applying for that same grant through the California Energy Commission, and I think it's focused on the county fleet, but they're going to try and position the charging stations they put in so they can be used during the day by the public as well. And I think for this particular grant, they kind of decided to focus it on just Ukiah, although there was discussion of other areas in the county. But I think what they've kind of settled on now is the main county admin center on Low Gap in Ukiah, and then also the UKO center in downtown Ukiah. But yeah, if you're looking for information from any of the supervisors, Dan Jurdy is really a big backer of this, and I know he wants to do more, and he wants to do more outside of the Ukiah area. But yeah, I don't know a ton about it, but I do sit in on some of the meetings. So that's kind of what I know at the moment.
Yeah, but you're saying they're focusing primarily on Ukiah.
For right now they are, yeah, but in the future, I know that they would like to see more stuff happen on the coast and just in other areas of the county as well.
Well, do you have any idea of how much of a, are they going, how much money they're going for in terms of this grant? Because the maximum is 1.6 million. You can put in a lot of charging stations for 1.6 million.
I'm not sure how much they settled on money-wise for the ask, but I think they're trying to put in like 25 charging stations was their goal. Sorry, I'm trying to look through the email I've got.
Well, you know, Ukiah perhaps needs more charging stations, but they already have 8 Tesla fast chargers there. And there's 4 level 2 chargers in the public parking lot. I think there's a couple more in a hotel or something. I mean, there's already something in Ukiah. Certainly it's not enough, you know,
Right.
going forward. But, you know, there are other locations like Gualala where there's nothing. So I really think that the county needs to consider these rural areas to establish charging as a priority so that people can drive around the county and know that as they drive around, whether they are tourists or local people, that they'll have a place to stop and charge.
Yeah, I agree. I'll bring that up at our next meeting where we're discussing this grant. I doubt they're going to change their plans at this point, but I know that's why I mentioned Supervisor Jurdy, especially just because he was really wanting to get more out on the coast because, you know, tourism, all these other things, and you don't have very many. But I'll definitely bring that up in our meeting and see if we can, at least for future grants, that we could get some money out to the coast and some of these more rural areas.
Travis, is MCOG coordinating that activity, or is that through your office, or whose office is running that?
It's kind of a collaboration. My division's working on it, but also the general services is heavily involved with it, since they're kind of planning on doing this at existing county facilities or county-owned properties. But like I said before the meeting, I mean, my division is looking for grants all the time, including things like this, because there is this push for trying to get, you know, more renewable energy type of things for the county, just to build resiliency and all that. So, I mean, knowing that you actively want charging stations in Gualala is helpful for me. So, you know, as we look for more grant opportunities, we have that. We know that you would want that.
Well, we have made this clear to the Board of Supervisors, you know, for a couple of years now. Ted Williams has been aware of our need down here. And so, you know, it's not something new, I don't think.
Okay.
You know, this is something
you know, I think this is emblematic. Go ahead,
and
Don.
discussing with other people for quite a while now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's true. There's one of the problems with Mendocino County, and we're part of this, is that people tend to operate in silos. You know, we may scream loudly that we want chargers down here in Gualala, but we're a tiny voice and people don't necessarily hear us over the buzz of everything else going on in the county. That's going on in several departments. If MCOG is doing their thing, OES is doing its thing, General Services is doing its thing, you can imagine that you may have 5 or 6 different grant applications being written at the same time without anybody else knowing about it. I think we really need to have kind of a new energy czar, and I think Dan would be a great person to lead that effort and would champion that. So maybe we need to reach out and help initiate that a little bit more by talking to Dan. He's a great, very approachable guy, has some very good ideas on housing and clean energy. And I found him very receptive to suggestions from Gualala, even though he's for district on the North Coast. So yeah, let's stimulate those conversations. Mary, I see you have your hand up, waving away there. What can we do?
Yes. As a member of the public and a resident of Gualala since 1976, I have watched the county spend tax money over overly abundant for Ukiah and very, very little to us. 35 to 40% of the tax money that comes from tourism in this county, if not more, comes from the coast. We get 5 to 7% of it back, let alone our property taxes. I've seen it being spent in Ukiah on paving, on renewing sidewalks, on redoing the sewer system, on public housing, which was very much spoken about and offered to the coast and Gualala several years ago, and was spoken about in this forum for months. And the county decided that Ukiah needed it more than anybody else, and they built it all there. I would like to emphasize that we would like to have charging stations out here to serve not only the public who lives here, but the tourists who come here, and the money that they spend that goes back then to Ukiah. And I can go on infinitum, but I'm going to close my comments there.
It's a fair point, and it's something I looked into a couple of years ago with regards to the tourism money and where it goes. And it turns out most of it was going to marketing efforts for the county as a whole. And when you look at those marketing efforts, including the travel site for Mendocino County, there was about a third page down in there. There was one slide for Gualala, and it misrepresented the Breakers Hotel as the Surf Motel. And I pointed it out, and they thanked me for my correction. I don't know if it was ever fixed or not, because I never dug that deep in that site again. But I, as somebody who's had some experience in marketing, I just thought the marketing effort was pathetic. But there is another avenue where we should be pursuing charging stations through that fund. So all these efforts combined to be a pretty powerful force. All these efforts separately are spits in a bucket. And to get grant money, you have to have a pretty powerful force. I think the county needs to change its direction there. So anyway.
Denying the coast and shunning us for tax money and for support when it comes to tourism and the upgrade of our lifestyle has been egregious by the county.
You're not alone in that opinion.
I know.
Okay.
I'm not.
Oh, speaking just for myself, who's only been working for the county since last year, because my role is new in our office, is just kind of getting stood up a little more here. One of my priorities is to try and get money outside of the Ukiah, like the greater Ukiah area, because I also share your opinions on that. I mean, I live in Willits, so I see it as well. I see that North County doesn't get much, the coast doesn't get much, it's all Ukiah. I agree with you. And so I've been trying to focus some efforts on getting grants and grant money available to these other parts of the county. To give you one example, and then like we recently applied as a county for a CAL FIRE prevention grant to do vegetation management. And originally the plan was to only focus it in the Ukiah area. And I pushed back on them, and we got them to actually apply for $500,000 each for the Covelo area and the Laytonville area, because they never get anything. So going forward, I'm going to be trying to attend as many of your meetings as possible. And yeah, anytime you have things like that, I'm writing them down. I'm trying to make a list for all these MAC areas so that we know, since we're going to be staffing up on grant writers and people, the board just approved that at the last regular meeting to let us hire some more grant writers. Like within my division, at least, there is a willingness to try and spread some of this money out. So I'm working on it. I'm trying.
Well, we appreciate that, Travis. Yeah, pat on the back for you, man. We really appreciate all the voices we get in Ukiah, and having your voice there is meaningful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Travis. I mean, whatever you can do on your end to sort of, bring us up in these discussions so we're not totally forgotten would really be appreciated.
we may be the only MAC in the county that has somebody assigned to electric vehicle charging station. So you can point that out to them and invite Don to your meetings. I'm sure Don would love to spend Tuesday afternoons or whatever they are with you.
Invite others to join our meeting every first Thursday to hear what the public has to say, because it's important that the county in Ukiah hear the voice of the coast, so that they know.
That's what MACs are for.
And
We have five MACs in this county to represent the rural point of view to the people in Ukiah. And I think sometimes the MACs don't always do a good job of making themselves heard. We've been heard on Streetscape, I'll tell you that. But we're not always heard on some of the other issues that come up that we rant about, and then it stops there. And we can't always count on the whole board of supervisors to spend 4 hours going through a GMAC video. So, I think it's up to us individual GMAC members, if we're assigned to a committee or something, to carry that banner and make sure that our voices are being heard and that we're listening to people in our community and what they want. On this issue, for example, is a good example. I can tell you in economic development, I made a royal pain of myself saying the things that we need to say. So please remember that as you serve on GMAC, that the noisy, squeaky wheel often gets the grease in a county like Mendocino can. Okay, can we move on? Our brief agenda is getting kind of long here.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. Telecommunications. The only thing I have to add there is that we had about 110 views between our two videos last month. A little over 80 of them were for the streetscape discussion, which I broke out as a separate one. I'm glad to see that's getting more views. It's nice to have 10 people sitting around a table at our meetings. It's great to have another 80 people watch the video after the meeting to kind of catch up on what's going on with that. Thank you all out there who watched it. Tell your friends about it. Our channel is picking up some viewers. Some of our videos are popular enough that YouTube's selling advertising on them. Who knew? Wish we could get our cut. Maybe we could pay a charging station. Don, anything else to add on telecommunications this month?
No, I don't have anything else, Tom.
Okay, great. If there are no questions, we'll go on to the Water Ad Hoc Committee. Anything new there, Don?
No, actually, Robert and I haven't, we didn't meet this month or last month. So I don't have anything to add. We have put together a list of questions we'd like to submit to North Gualala Water Company to get a little bit more information from them about, what their plans are and how things are going, specifically, related to the drought and everything. So I'll make a point of meeting with Robert this month, so we have something for the next meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. Bang that drum. That's a good one. I've been hearing scuttlebutt that people would like to have a publicly owned water system. You might pass that along too. North Gualala Water. Might make it easier to get a reservoir. Might make it easier to end the housing moratorium. All that.
What is scuttlebutt in this
It's
context?
public discussion.
Okay.
Unattributed public discussion,
Attributed.
sometimes known as gossip, although I don't think it's quite the same. Gossip often implies some sort of intent to it, whereas scuttlebutt is just, I heard a word or two about it.
Yeah, okay.
Is that right, Mary?
Murmuring among the crew on all sorts of rumors.
I knew you'd know this. Okay, good.
Yes, living on board for 5 years and being a boat builder for 10.
It's a nautical term.
Yes, it is a nautical term. Back to like 15 or 1600s, I think. Maybe a little later.
Okay. So that's it. We're through the committee that matters. We're up to permit review assignments, and we have none. let's go right to Administrative Secretary Mowbert's report.
Yes, I worked 21.88 hours in February. Materials were $9.20 for a total of $392.16. Somehow the county has lost my my February statement. So Robert is going to address that perhaps tomorrow or the next day when he can.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And my only report tonight would be an expression of concern for the people of Ukraine. You can't really tell, but this is a blue blazer. When I bought, it's a People's Republic jacket that I bought in Shanghai some years ago when they still wore those things, and a yellow shirt. And personally, I plan to wear a lot more blue and yellow coming up soon. And I also want to express our best wishes to Robert and his family, who are going through a really tough time right now. I know several of you have sent your personal wishes as well, but I'd ask people in the community to keep Robert and his family in your prayers for what they're going through right now. Kind of a difficult time. But when you don't see Robert at a GMAC meeting, you know it must be something awfully difficult he's going through. He just texted me a little while ago and he said things are going as well as can be expected. But at 10 minutes to 6, they were quite chaotic. So he's in the middle of it and he needs our thoughts and prayers. That's about all I have tonight. We obviously don't have Chairman Youngling's report. So we are ready for a motion for adjournment. Henry, you'll be happy to know that we have somebody here on our team who's pretty much dedicated to the adjournment issue. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I knew you would. And do we hear a second?
I'll second.
Henry second. Our oldest member and our newest member combined efforts to adjourn the meeting. I think that's symbolic of where we should all head. So I will call for the vote. Melissa, are you in favor of your motion?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
Donald?
Aye.
And I will vote aye for another 4-0-2 vote for the evening. And that will close our festivities for GMAC for the month of March 2022. Thank you all for being with us, and we'll see you again next month.
Thank you, Travis, for sticking with us all the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
We enjoyed
Dave,
your report.
Even Dave Scott gave up on us.
Okay,
Have a
now
good
everybody.
month.
Night.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Take care.
night.
Thank you so much for welcoming me.
Thank
You
you,
are
Henry,
more than
for joining
welcome.
us.